Great. Okay. So today we are going to cover the Montana Campus Compact AmeriCorps VISTA overview. I'm going to throw a decent amount of information at you regarding how to support a VISTA, some compliance requirements, reporting, all sorts of stuff. So as I mentioned before, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, ask away. With the recording going, I don't see the green box around my screen indicating that I'm sharing, but I just want to make sure that you all can still see my screen. Perfect. Yes. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and get started. If it will allow me to. There we go. Okay, so I just wanted to start with a couple introductions. As you know, you should know, my name is Callie Foster. I'm the VISTA Program Director here with Montana Campus Compact. I put my email and my office phone number there. And then joining us today is our VISTA Program Specialist, Eli. Eli, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Eli. I'm the VISTA Program Specialist. I've been in a staff role with Campus Compact for a couple of years, although I specifically moved into this role just a little under a year ago. I did 2 years of AmeriCorps service with our organization, and I'm here to support Callie and our sites and members.
Great, thanks, Eli. Yeah, and I guess I could provide a little bit about me. I've been in this role since 2019, and before that, I was actually in Eli's position. So I've been with Campus Compact a little bit over 4 years, and before that, I was living in Helena, and I did 2 terms of AmeriCorps service with a program called Energy Corps, and I was serving with the Department of Environmental Quality. A lot of our staff members here are AmeriCorps or Peace Corps alum, so we're all things AmeriCorps over here in Missoula. I also like to hear from host sites. So Mike and Tammy, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, your name, organization, location, and if you are a first, second, or third year project with Campus Compact. So Mike, you're already unmuted. Would you like to go first?
Sure. Yeah, so basically Mike McManus, and I'm the program coordinator for Veterans Navigation Network, based in Billings, but partners all over the state. And we are, well, this would be our first year.
Thank you. And Tammy, are you out there and able to unmute where you are? Okay, well, we'll let Tammy come back to us if they would like to introduce themselves. Okay, so I'm going to keep plugging along. So I like to give an overview of where we're going to have VISTAs this coming year. So starting this summer, we have VISTAs serving all throughout Montana. So these communities include Helena, Butte, Missoula, Ronan, Arley, Billings, Kalispell, Havre, Livingston, Red Lodge, Fort Peck, and Bozeman. So we have a pretty far reach across Montana, and we're really excited to engage service members all across our wonderful state. So a little bit about Montana Campus Compact and our VISTA program. Montana Campus Compact, we are a nonprofit housed here at the University of Montana. We've been around since I think the early 90s. We are a statewide coalition of colleges and university presidents who are committed to addressing community need through the resources of higher education. So our mission is to advance the public purpose of higher education institutes. But under that, we run 2 AmeriCorps programs, and I direct one of them, which is the lovely VISTA program. And so within our VISTA program, we have members that are placed in community organizations, public agencies, or college campuses to create and expand programs that 1, build capacity, and 2, ultimately bring low-income individuals and communities out of poverty. So those are the 2 pillars of VISTA, is capacity building and poverty alleviation. So in order for you to host a VISTA within your service site, they need to make sure that they check both of those boxes. So that's just a tiny overview. There's a lot more to it, but I don't need to get into the nuances of it during this webinar. A little further into that, not to confuse you, but just I like to give an overview of like our funding stream. So the Corporation for National and Community Service is, you know, a synonym for AmeriCorps. I think they're kind of phasing out, you know, their CNCS name and just being called AmeriCorps, but they have 3 funding sources. And so we fall under this one where they have 3 types of AmeriCorps programs. There's NCCC, which I think stands for the National Civilian Community Corps. It's a group of young folks between the ages of 18 and 26 that join a cohort, and then they travel around a region together doing AmeriCorps projects between, I think, like 6 and 12 weeks at a time throughout that year. And then there's VISTA, which is our program. It stands for Volunteers in Service to America. And then the third kind of funding stream and program are state and national grants. Those are the projects that are like Montana Conservation Corps, Energy Corps, and these smaller direct service type programs. So we fall under VISTA, which is that indirect service, capacity building, poverty alleviation. They have moved into a regional office structure, whereas before we used to have state offices. So we have a regional office in Denver that we report to, and they kind of move funding out into sponsoring organizations. You can have a sponsoring organization that has a single site, such as like a Boys and Girls Club. They have one supervisor or program director, and then they have VISTA members that are doing very similar work. We do not have this structure because we have such a diverse pool of service sites. So we are an intermediary, and we collect applications from VISTA subsites, which would be you. And then there's subsite supervisors, which would be you, and then VISTA members. So it kind of trickles down from VISTA to the regional office and then out into intermediaries for single sites. So that's just a little bit about the funding stream. Within AmeriCorps, there's many bureaucratic layers, but that's just kind of the gist of it. Okay, so getting a little further into what VISTA is. So as I mentioned, the goal is to help alleviate poverty. Members serve full-time, so 24/7. When they take the oath to join VISTA, they're taking an oath that they are going to be in service for 365 days. It's not your typical 9-to-5 job. They're technically always in service and always representing AmeriCorps and VISTA. This is not to say that you should be requiring your VISTA member to serve, you know, all sorts of crazy hours or, you know, every weekend or for 24/7. But again, there's not an hour requirement. They just need to be in service for 365 days and serve between 35 and 40 hours a week. There's kind of that sweet spot of 35 to 40 hours a week. We ask that, you know, you're not scheduling hours less than 35 or more than 40, although we do understand that there are busy seasons throughout all of our work. So they could go a little bit over 40, but we ask that they average between 35 to 40 hours a week. So for you as a service site, we expect you to provide day-to-day supervision, provide supplies that they need, equipment and training to use the equipment, and also to, how they're going to do their service. We expect you to train them. The project must build capacity and focus on indirect service. We do understand that there is, you know, going to be limited times when they might need to, you know, engage in direct service, but we ask that they focus on indirect service, that capacity building, you know, growing and expanding your programs, not on the front lines doing that direct service with the beneficiaries of your program. Of course, they need to align with our program priorities that we've outlined in our AmeriCorps grant, which is education. That includes school readiness, K through 12 success, as well as post-secondary access and success. We also have a program priorities of veterans that's kind of all encompassing, but we like it to align as much as possible with our mission. And then we've also added a new program priority this year, which is community resilience. Cost share for affiliates, which is one of our compact institutions. It is $6,250 to host a VISTA, and non-affiliate is $8,350 per member. If you have requested a fee waiver, just know that I'm working on that. And you know, if you do not have the funds to pay the affiliate or non-affiliate fee, we can always work that out. Okay, so getting into a VISTA assignment description. So a VISTA assignment description is just a nice shiny word that VISTA uses to say a role description. So it's a position description that each VISTA receives upon entering service. It's really meant to describe their role, including the overarching goal of the project and what they're really meant to do within their service. It outlines specific objectives and activities for member service year. So we kind of consider it like a roadmap. You know, they have their overarching goal, and then it's outlined with objectives and member activities. So this is something that they are supposed to refer to throughout their service term to make sure that they are on track to meet the overarching goal and the objectives. The great thing about a VISTA assignment description, we also call it a VAD. So if you hear me say VAD, I mean VISTA assignment description. The great thing about it is that it can evolve to fit the VISTA member and the project needs. You know, circumstances change throughout the year. We see this time in and time out again and again, that these projects really evolve. The needs change, circumstances change. So if you need to change the VISTA assignment description, the easiest thing to do is to make the changes in a document and then send it to me. I'll refer to the original VAD and the new one, make the changes and submit it to VISTA. It's really simple, and we can change it at any time throughout the service term. So here's a sample VISTA assignment description. A lot of the information up here that has project numbers and all this stuff, project period, you really don't have to worry about that. What you want to pay attention to is the real meat of the VISTA assignment description. What is the project goal? What are these objectives? And what are these member activities? Your member will receive this from our office when they enter service. We're also, during orientation, going to give them time to really go over it, understand it, ask us questions if they need to. But I like to add some tips on here as well. We've seen that VISTA members are most successful when their supervisors understand and also follow the VAD. It can get really convoluted when a member comes into service. We say, okay, here's your VAD. They get to their service site, and then their service site has them doing all sorts of things that they were not expecting to do during their term of service. So you definitely want to understand and follow the VISTA assignment description. Again, if things change, we can always change them within this document. Again, if your VAD needs revising due to changes, just contact me or our general office and we'll walk you through the process. Okay, so if the two of you can recall filling out the application to host a VISTA, you might recall a campus or a community partner aspect to this. So it's vital to the mission of Montana Campus Compact, because we are really trying to create partnerships, enrich and strengthen those partnerships between, you know, community organizations or the community as a whole and the purpose of higher education. We require each of our sites to partner with either a community organization if you are on a college campus, or if you are a community organization, we ask that you partner with a campus in your local area. Again, as I mentioned, it's defined during project development, and it addresses community needs by utilizing the resources of higher education. So when I think of those resources, I think of you know, schools or campuses often have, you know, well-equipped space to hold events, and usually it's at a really low cost. So if you're doing any sort of fundraising, it'd be good to reach out to your campus partner and see if you can secure a location. Also, service learning opportunities for students. If you're looking for volunteers, it's really great to partner with a campus or a community organization to get to, really reach into those pools of potential volunteers. We're seeing that, institutions are requiring more service learning, experiential learning, and volunteerism throughout their courses. And then also, utilizing faculty research. We've seen some really great partnerships throughout the years start as just, understanding that each other exist, and then it becomes more of like a research and consultation sort of thing between faculty or professors at a campus and a community organization. So those are just 3 really simple ways to engage in a campus and a community partnership. So just utilizing the infrastructure that is on a campus, tapping into student volunteers and faculty research. I put a tip at the bottom of this page. Communicate who your campus or community partner is with your VISTA soon after they start. And I really encourage you to provide that introduction. We see that members are pretty green to the workforce. This VISTA service may be their very first experience in a professional setting. So by facilitating those introductions can really ease some of the anxiety that members may feel when they have to, start that communication of what that partnership really looks like. So definitely provide an introduction between your VISTA and your partner soon after they start. I am going to pause here for a second to check the chat just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, yep, Eli just excused himself. We're pretty busy this week, but I just wanted to make sure that he was here to introduce himself. Okay, so moving forward, again, Tammy, Mike, if you need to ask any questions, feel free to chime in at any point.
I will, thank you. I had somebody walk into my office, so I had to put you on mute near.
No worries, Tammy. Tammy,
Okay.
Did you want to introduce yourself for a moment?
I'm Tammy Gordon. I work at Montana Tech in the CFLIP office. I've been here almost 17 years, and this will be maybe our 4th VISTA that we have. So should be interesting. Brooke will be with us in 2 weeks. So I've been just trying to get ready for her to show up and get her desk all ready and paperwork and all sorts of things.
Great, thank you, Tammy. Okay, so I'm getting into a few of the requirements that we need from VISTAs on a monthly basis. I might have skipped a thing. Nope, okay. So monthly work plans, it is something that we require each VISTA to submit on a monthly basis. And it's pretty much just them telling us what they have planned for the month ahead of them. We ask them to create a SMART goal, and SMART just stands for, specific, really outlining who, what, where, when, why, and which, really defining that goal. It needs to be measurable, really, to set that goal of like starting from point A and ending at point B. It also needs to be attainable. How are they going to create, or how are they going to meet the goal of their work plan? It also needs to be relevant to service and worthwhile of their time. And it also needs to be timely. We want to see what are their goals for that month, but what are the overarching goals of their service term as well. We don't want to just see like, oh, I plan to increase number of volunteers. Well, when are you going to do that by? How are you going to do it? Is it even relevant to be doing that right now at this point in their service term? And because we are not there with them on their day-to-day service, this also just allows us to monitor their service a little bit to make sure that they're not doing something outside of their VAD and that they're not engaging in direct service. And also just to make sure that they are on track and that they are supported. Sometimes folks don't want to come forward with what's going on at their service. So this is a way for us to kind of see touch points of where we should or if we need to intervene. I encourage you to review this work plan with your VISTA before they submit it to make sure that your goals and objectives are aligned for that month. and then they will submit it to our office each month. Please encourage them to do this and submit it in a timely fashion. We are a pretty small office around here, so it would really help us out if we weren't kind of tracking these down every month from them.
Kelly, when do you want that? Like by the third day of the month, or?
Yep, so monthly work plans are due on the 1st of each month unless that falls on a weekend. And then we also require a report and a timesheet from them by the 5th. So as long as I receive these things by the 5th of the month, I feel pretty good about it. But typically if a member needs a little bit of, deadline extended or a little bit of leeway, I usually grant it as long as they're communicative about what they need.
Okay.
Okay.
But every month, basically those, yep, okay.
Yeah, I'd say by the 5th of each month is
Okay.
kind of where we're at with timelines. Okay, and then another thing that we require them to submit on a monthly basis is a daily activity log. This is just another term for a timekeeping system, a timesheet. And so they will log their hours, their activities, and their personal and medical leave that they took during the month. You will, as a supervisor, need to sign off on this activity log before it is submitted. I do not accept activity logs that do not have a supervisor's signature on them. And they will submit those each month, anytime before the 5th. Again, if you're out of the office or whatnot, either you or your VISTA can just let me know that it's coming at a later time, and that's okay. So I'm actually going to move on to the next slide because here is an example of a monthly activity log. So just need to see your member's name, the month and the year, and they're going to submit about 12 of these throughout their service term. We outline it for week 1 to week 2. So if your member starts on July 5th, then it's going to be July 5th through July 9th and then onward. Within these boxes, and I'll train your VISTA on how to complete this, but we just want to see bullet points, a few things that they were working on that day. And then this second box on this row is when they came into the office and when they left and what their total hours were. They'll do that throughout the week. And then these exceptions, the P stands for personal leave, M stands for medical, and then E is for emergency. VISTAs are allotted emergency leave, but for certain circumstances, but they will need to communicate if they took personal, medical, or emergency leave throughout the month. And then at the bottom, we ask to tally up total personal leave and total medical leave. We have them sign it. You'll need to sign it as well before they submit it. But again, I will train each VISTA on how to complete an activity log when they come in for their orientation. But please keep in mind that this does happen on a monthly basis. So if your VISTA is not asking you to sign these each month, then just know you'll most likely be hearing from me to get those. I will say that an activity log is a requirement within our grant to stay in compliance and receive funding. So these are very important that they are submitted and that I get activity logs that encompass their full year of service just for auditing purposes. Okay, more compliance. So this will just go over a little bit of what we talked about. I just noticed that some of these dates are incorrect, so excuse me, but the VISTA member, they'll have to submit a monthly report. The monthly report is through an online platform called Qualtrics. We have this report, we keep it in-house, and it is based off of the performance measures that you outlined in your application, as well as some demographics, as well as some narrative. So this is required each month. They'll submit a report online. You do not have to sign off on these reports. This is just for a member. And we'll make sure that we train them on it and that they are, well versed on what our expectations are with a monthly report. The monthly reports are just a way for us to show member impact to AmeriCorps, to make sure that we are hitting the milestones that we said that we will hit for our grant. Again, the monthly work plans as well as the VISTA activity logs. For you as a site supervisor to stay in compliance, sign those activity logs monthly before they're submitted. Review the monthly reports. If you have time, if you want to get in there with your member and fill out the first few reports with them, just to make sure that you both are, you understand what's expected, what it really entails, but you're not required to do the report with them. It is a requirement of the member. And then those work plans, definitely review them. We do ask that you submit the VISTA and the VISTA's personal and medical leave through a monthly Google form. This will be sent out by someone in our office. And so this is just our way of confirming, okay, the member told us on the activity log that they took this many personal or medical leave or emergency leave off, and we want to make sure that what they submit on their activity log is what you also have in your records. So it's a pretty simple Google form that we're going to ask you to fill out on a monthly basis. And then we're just going to ask, okay, how many days did they take off and what were those days? And then we cross-reference at certain points throughout the year to make sure that these records match.
I got a question. Do they have certain amount of days that they can take for personal and medical, or is it just as needed? How's that all work?
So I think I'll probably get to it in a different slide, but I can definitely answer that question now.
Okay.
VISTA members are allotted 10 personal days and 10 medical days throughout their service term. So a total of 20 days. And then they also are allotted national holidays, and the national holidays that they are permitted to take off are the same holidays that your site takes off. If you are at an education institution, they do not get like spring break and winter break off or the summer. They need to be serving throughout those breaks, even if students are not on campus.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, and then as a site supervisor, we do not ask you to write an end of term impact report, but we ask you to review it. As your member gets closer to completing their service term, we're going to train them on what is expected in their impact report. And we ask that you review it as a site supervisor before it's submitted to us. So the end of term impact report is just a comprehensive narrative report, outlining what their service, what they accomplished during their service, any, positive change in metrics, as well as give them an opportunity to tell an impactful story from their term of service. And then we have to conduct biannual staff site visits. So for folks that are starting in July, I will plan to come visit in person sometime in the fall or early winter of this year. So that is meant to say 2022, and it is meant to be in person. If COVID is still, happening, which it may be during this time, or if there are things that prohibit me from traveling, then I will do it virtually, but my plan is to be there in person. And then in the spring of 2023, we do typically a virtual one, but it could be in person, kind of depending on funding, travel plans, whatnot. But you can expect to do a site visit in the fall, and then in the spring or the early summer. It's like I come to make sure that all the ducks are in a row within the first 3 to 6 months of the service term, and then I come and visit again in the spring to make sure that we're all in compliance and that the member is supported as they start to transition out of service. Okay, getting into the personal and medical leave. This pig should not be as large, but it looks like it cut off some of the words. But Each member receives 10 personal leave days and 10 medical leave days. Also, VISTA has a policy where VISTA members can engage in 1 week of emergency leave if they experience the death or critical illness in an immediate family member. The really great thing about this policy is that AmeriCorps will pay for round trip transportation for the member. And so if this policy is something that your member wants to utilize, they need to contact me immediately. They should not go to the funeral or home without letting me know if they want to utilize this policy. And it's really great because, you know, VISTAs are on a pretty modest living stipend. So if once I start this procedure, then they will be in contact with the VISTA member support unit. And so they would plan and pay for round trip transportation. The caveat about this policy though, is that they will only pay for round trip transportation within the United States. If they need to travel internationally, VISTA will pay for their flight or transportation to the closest border or to the closest airport on the border to get to the country that they need to get to. Hopefully that makes sense, but pretty much they only pay for domestic flights or domestic transportation. Again, with national holidays, these are holidays that are observed by you, the host site. If you do not want to have your VISTA adhere to your national holidays for any reason, you can use the University of Montana's, and we have 11 national holidays that we observe. So this is an additional benefit that members receive, so they can kind of plan some time off throughout the year by utilizing national holidays. And again, it is your responsibility to ensure that your VISTA follows these guidelines, especially with the personal and medical leave. They're only allotted 10 personal leave days and 10 medical leave days. We cannot make exceptions unless there are some, you know, compelling circumstances too. But typically we're trying to stick to 10 personal and 10 medical days. If your VISTA does go over those days substantially, we need to make sure that we're in communication, because it could disqualify them from VISTA service. So not to scare you or anything, but this is a pretty serious policy that VISTA upholds us to. And I will train or orient your members to all of this as well. And I go pretty in depth to this emergency leave as well in the emergency transportation. So they will get trained on this when they come to orientation. Okay, so getting into personal and medical leave, the Google form, it's pretty simple. This is just the first few questions, but it's, you know, full name of the month that you're reporting on, your VISTA's first name, their last name, and then it's going to get into asking you, you know, how many medical days did your VISTA take off? What were those exact dates? And then the same for personal. And then the last question is just going to ask you to certify your name of who is filling out the form. Please do not have your VISTA filled out this form. This is just for site supervisors. Okay, so a couple other policies that I like to cover with site supervisors before their VISTA comes on is the outside employment as well as educational courses. So outside employment, your VISTA is allowed to have a side hustle, is what they call it these days. So there is a pre-approval process that is needed to happen for the site supervisor, so you to approve it, as well as our office and the regional office. So once you fill out the form, you say, okay, yes, my VISTA is going to like work at Walgreens on the side or on the weekend. I approve that. It doesn't interfere with, you know, their VISTA service. They're doing it on their own time. And then you or the VISTA would send it to me once it's been approved by the host site supervisor. And then I'll tell the regional office, yep, so-and-so is working a second job. It doesn't interfere with their service, and they'll give me the thumbs up and we're good to go. Again, it cannot interfere with the designated service duties as determined by you, the supervisor. So it is your responsibility to kind of work out a schedule with the member if they are going to have outside employment. We've seen an influx in this over the last couple of years with, cost of living is just going up, especially here in Montana. So I encourage you to be as flexible as you possibly can if your member is exploring a second job. Educational courses, full-time enrollment is prohibited with VISTA. Your member cannot be a full-time student while enrolled in VISTA service. They can, however, do part-time enrollment, but it must be approved again by you, the host site supervisor, our office, and the regional office. These forms I'm going to provide to your member, and so it's up to them to complete it and submit it to you and our office. And then everything with the regional office, I will handle. Your VISTA does not need to figure out who to contact at the regional office. I'll take care of that. And again, just like outside employment, these educational courses cannot interfere with the designated service duties as determined by you, the site supervisor. Okay, so we're getting into prohibited activities is what AmeriCorps calls these. And this is, again, something I will review with your member. Prohibited activities include political engagement. So while they are actively serving, they are at your site, they are being represented as an AmeriCorps VISTA or being perceived as an AmeriCorps VISTA, they should not be engaging in any political engagement. AmeriCorps goes even further to say that political engagement specifically to influence legislation is definitely prohibited. They should not be doing anything as part of their service duties to influence legislation. Religious activities as well. If your member wants to, pray or go to a worship, they need to be doing that on their own time, and it should not be considered part of their service duties. They should not be conducting any sort of worship with beneficiaries or staff. Same with union organizing. So that includes union organizing or anti-union organizing. Anything to do with the union, they should not be involved in that. Same with providing abortion services or referrals. This should not be part of their national service duties. Same with alcohol consumption. We understand that some sites have like fundraisers or banquets or galas and whatnot. If they are consuming alcohol at these events, they should not be wearing any sort of AmeriCorps apparel. They should not be perceived as an AmeriCorps VISTA. They should be doing it as, they are a guest at that event. They should not be like, helping organize the event or hosting it while consuming alcohol. And then the same goes for safety risks. This is pretty subjective, but they should not be participating in activities that pose a significant safety risk to themselves or your beneficiaries of your program. We tell them a tip when we go over prohibited activities. They can do this on their own time. When they are not actively serving with you at your site, they can engage in political engagement, religious activities, alcohol consumption, these things, but they should also be doing it in their own clothing. They should not have any sort of AmeriCorps gear on at all. And they need to be doing it on their own device. We don't want to see, a member kind of ranting about, current administration or, lobbying or anything on like their Facebook or any sort of like internet platform and on your device that is provided at your site. If they want to go home and rant on Facebook or Instagram, they're more than welcome to do that, but they should be doing it on their own time, in their own clothing, and on their own device. If we see things, if we see any of these prohibited activities, it is reason for termination from AmeriCorps service, and AmeriCorps takes this very seriously. If you yourself see your member participating in any of these prohibited activities, please remind them that these are prohibited activities and let me know. and we can address it. Okay, so VISTA trainings, getting into what we will provide and what we expect you to provide. So we provide, this should say regional, but we provide regional and MTCC specific pre-service orientation. So this is right at the beginning of their service, we orient them on all things VISTA and what our expectations are, what compliance means, what reporting means, and all of that. And then we ask that you do an on-site orientation and training with your members, definitely within the first 3 weeks of their service and onwards. Make sure that you're helping them get acclimated to the community if they're not a local recruit, acclimating them to your organizational structure, culture, introduce them to all sorts of people. If they are unaware of, where to even find the public library or nonprofits that they're interested in volunteering with, that sort of thing, we expect you to orient them to the community, because we're all here in Missoula, and although we're well versed with what's going on here in Missoula, we're not well versed with exactly what's going on in your community. So we ask that you conduct an on-site orientation and training with them, not just of what their service duties are, but even larger with the community that they're serving in. Okay, so getting a little further into on-site orientation and training. So it should take place for the first 3 weeks that your VISTA is in your office. The purpose is to establish an effective working relationship between the VISTA and the supervisor, the site staff, and the community. If you do not have an orientation plan in place, I would ask that you kind of set it up, but we also provide an orientation pamphlet, or I want to call it a brochure, but it's not a brochure. It's just a multi-page orientation and training that we've put together to kind of help guide the VISTA through getting acclimated to your site and the community. So we break it out into the 3 weeks. The first week, we give them tips and ways to get to know their organization and their community. Week 2 really dives into, furthering how to get involved in the community, the project, and your community or campus partner. And then week 3 is really diving into the journey of VISTA and really working out work plan development. We ask the VISTA to get you involved in this. And then within that on-site orientation and training, we also provide a supervisor and VISTA questionnaire. And we ask that you complete it within 30 days of beginning the service term and submit it back to our office. So this is just a 1-page document with, I think, like 8 to 10 questions on it, when we expect you to sit down with your VISTA within the first 30 days and ask each other these questions. They're really, kind of surface level questions, but they ask, what's your communication style? How would you prefer me to communicate with you? Is it written, verbal? Can I, call you on your cell phone? Are you okay with text messages? Would you just strictly prefer email? And then it gets into things outside of their service of, are there, external pressures that you have going on in your life that may at times affect your ability to, be at 100% or be present at your project? Some of our members come in with pre-existing conditions and health concerns that they have, and how are they going to navigate, finding a new doctor or a provider? How are they going to get their prescriptions? What does VISTA health coverage really look like? We want you to be aware that there are external pressures going on in these folks' lives, especially in the beginning. So just giving you and your member time and space to talk through these things. I don't need to know how you answered the questions. I just need your VISTA signature and your signature on the bottom of the document, just acknowledging that you went through these questions together. Again, if you don't have an on-site orientation and training plan set up, feel free to use the one that I'm going to provide you and your member and add your site information to this orientation. Excuse me. Okay, I'm going to move on from on-site orientation. So best practices as a VISTA supervisor, as you know, this is not a permanent staff member that's coming into your organization. Most members are, relatively on the younger side, early 20s, even though we do see some older folks come in to the cohort every year. But most of these folks are pretty green to the workforce. They may need some professional guidance, a little bit of coaching, some patience to kind of figure out how they really fit into your organization. You can expect to spend about 10 to 15% of your time per week, managing the VISTA, setting them up for success, outlining your expectations, training them on work that they need to get done, especially more at the beginning. Be intentional about orientation. You want to make sure that you're setting your member up for success. Help them assimilate into the community and the work environment. Treat them as staff. If you have a staff meeting, every Monday morning, invite them to it. If you have these kind of like traditions or habits, or like you do things as a group, please treat them as staff and invite them. As I mentioned, they may need some professional guidance and a little bit of coaching. We see that the most successful VISTA projects are when a supervisor really is intentional about guiding them through this year and professionally, and what that really means. And then I also put a link here for if you're interested in what your supervision style is. There is AmeriCorps provides kind of like a quiz for you to figure out what your supervision style is, and then gives you some tips on it if you wanted to do that. I will provide these slides in an email when I provide the recording of this, so you could always circle back and visit this website if you're interested. More site supervisor influence, where we're really trying to focus on member retention, member experience, and then also, making sure that what you as a site supervisor needs to get done with this project gets done. And site supervisor influence really goes a long way. Members are not here to make the big bucks. They're really here to make a change and get some professional development. So really our strongest sites have supervisors who take responsibility for the VISTA project, communicate regularly, and take time to meet with their member. We encourage you to set up a weekly check-in with them, even if it's just for 15, 30 minutes up to an hour. Be regularly checking in on them, hold them accountable, make sure that they're supported. Really invest in your VISTA's professional development, whether that's professional development that you yourself can provide to them, or if you have some extra funding, or if there are scholarships available for conferences or any sort of professional development outside of your office. Let them know that that is available to them. Also mentor the VISTA. We've seen that site supervisors who kind of view their role as like a mentor, especially for these younger VISTAs, VISTAs just feel more taken care of, cared for, which then translates into them staying for the entire year in their VISTA service. Appreciate the purpose of VISTA. VISTAs are not here to just kind of fill a seat in your office. They are here for a well-defined purpose. They're here for a year to really strengthen and expand or create programming within your office. And then also, this is new, something that we're kind of learning about and understanding, but our strongest sites have supervisors who understand that neurodiversity exists among VISTA members. I'll get further into that into the next slide, but this is something that MTCC as an office, we are focused more so on a diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility initiative within our office. So we wanted to kind of put a few things out to site supervisors, so for you to be thinking about neurodiversity within the workplace. And so, neurodiversity among VISTA members. So, the neurodivergent population includes individuals on the autism spectrum and those with ADHD, dyslexia, bipolar, Tourette's, and several other learning, intellectual, and development disabilities. And this is not meant to describe folks who have mental health issues like anxiety or depression. These are more like learning and developmental disabilities. So we asked that, hold on, I have to pull something up if this would go away. Great. Okay, so I have some notes because this is something that I'm just learning about as well. But we have recommendations for supporting neurodivergent VISTA members, explore alternatives, recognize that the way neurodiverse employees learn is different than the way you may expect. Explore practical or, experiential learning. It may be visual, tell stories, allow participants to like role play because they have different ways of learning. Be flexible, allow for more time to digest information and record information. Don't insist on this being done in a certain way. Let people draw or write or record if it helps them. Repetition is key and allow space for time for employees to like reread and repeat tasks, especially for neurodivergent folks. Be prepared, provide physical aid, whether you have the funding to provide like, blue lights or overlays for those with, dyslexia, and be cautious of the physical space that your member is in if they have, sensory or spatial sensitivities. Be prepared, you want to be, excuse me, I have notes. Forget which one this goes to, I'm sorry. I'll just move, be flexible. I'm sorry, I read the be prepared one when I said be flexible. But be flexible, no, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm tripping up on this. I think I just kind of combined the two of those. I'll just move on to keep it brief, avoiding text heavy documents and presentations. If information must be provided in this format, consider like bullet points of key information or audio visual modes of delivery, and always have alternative formats available for those who use, specialist equipment. So that's going to be like screen readers. You can help by writing and speaking in plain language, avoiding jargon as much as possible. And then recognizing potential. Neurodivergent folks have unique ways of thinking and working, and they are a huge benefit to you. So recognizing the potential of neurodiverse employees allows them space to excel. And then be aware. So this is specifically be aware of the impact of last minute changes for neurodivergent folks. Avoid asking them to quickly absorb new information and responding to it very quickly. Provide as much time as you can and support when the change is unavoidable. Also, be aware and be informed. So just be aware that people have different learning capabilities and different disabilities. And then also just be informed. So you yourself can learn about specific neurodiversity. So you shouldn't rely on your assumptions or like media representation of these types of folks. Ask open questions to understand different ways of doing things, establish the individual's strengths and allow them space to demonstrate them and build confidence. So we are not going to tell you, if you should be doing all of this for every single person. It's more up to the member if they want to disclose that they are neurodiverse. This is not something that we ask in onboarding paperwork, but this is more of just us telling folks, hey, we're trying to be more accommodating, more accessible, and inclusive in our work as an intermediary. And then we kind of extend that to you as a site supervisor as well. Also, I put a little note down here that VISTA members can request accommodations from their service site or our office. So if they disclose information to you about a disability or that they are neurodivergent, you don't have to then contact and let us know. If you can accommodate them in a reasonable way, then we ask you to do that. But because we are here at the University of Montana, we do have ADA accommodations available for members. So if they want to go through the formal request through our office, we do have a representative here at UM that will, have the paperwork and the ability to contact us, and we can figure out ways to accommodate. If they go through the formal process, we will be contacting you to let you know that they did disclose this information. And we do have some funding available for reasonable accommodation. So if your member, has a disability and they need a special keyboard or a mouse and you don't have the funding to provide that, we have some funding available as well. So we'll train members on them, but just know that we are seeing a trend of, neurodiverse applicants and candidates and members, and we want to be responsive to that. So this is just, surface level into neurodiversity among members, but we want you to understand that neurodivergent folks take up about, or are representative of about 15 to 20% of our population in the US. So we are trying to be responsive to that and kind of set them up for success in the beginning. So we'll train them on this as well as the process if they would like to request any sort of accommodations from from UM in a formal process. Okay, so getting a little bit further into helping your VISTA member, what can you do to support your member? So as a host site, you are not permitted to give extra compensation in the form of cash, but you are permitted, to provide non-cash items or non-cash assistance. So that's going to be assistance in locating housing, food or gifts. So no cash no cash. I learned you can give gift cards. So if you want to kind of subsidize their living allowance with the assistance of like providing them a gas card or a food card, you're able to do that. Any sort of clothing, if you have any swag that you give other employees that have your logo or represent your project, please feel free to give them any sort of swag that you may have. Same thing with promotional items. And then also provide recognition. We've seen that just acknowledging that the member is doing a great job, whether that's, giving them a thank you card or putting them in a newsletter, introducing them, or just sending out a simple email to your entire staff of saying, hey, we have a new person and they are an AmeriCorps VISTA and they're here to do X, Y, Z. It really goes a long way. And if you have any questions about this of like what may qualify and what may not qualify, you can always reach out to me and we can kind of figure things out. Things that we've also seen folks do is, pay for a gym membership within the community. Like the YMCA does like an income-based one, and some members will get a monthly membership for like $15 a month. So if you want to cover that, you can pay it directly. Even if you have any sort of funding to help pay for housing, you can always pay the landlord directly and not go through the member. We've also seen people buy like bus passes for folks that don't have cars. We've also seen if you're on a campus and they need some sort of like campus card to get into buildings or attend events, we've seen folks pay for those sorts of things. So any sort of non-cash item that you could leverage, we would encourage you to explore that, because each VISTA, they receive a modest living allowance. These sorts of things can go a long way and really help them feel supported and recognized by their host site. Okay, usually with a larger group, I like to kind of go around and ask, how do you plan to orient your VISTA to your community, the organization, and the project? I do want to acknowledge that we are pretty much right at time. So Mike and Tammy, if you want to chime in and give me a little idea of like what you're going to do to orient your member, I would welcome that. But if not, if you both need to kind of skedaddle on to your next thing today, we don't need to do this portion.
Yeah, we have we've got a staff meeting tomorrow to where we're gonna line out, just to get everybody acquainted with Brooke and what she's gonna be here and what she's gonna be doing and whatnot. And then when she comes in the office, I'll be with her for a couple days, just kind of getting her settled with, computer stuff, keys, blah, 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 parking pass, all that fun
Great.
stuff. And then she'll be with our staff to start learning our programs and whatnot. So it's I mean, she'll have the background, but she'll be out with the staff more than anything, doing projects and seeing the projects. Once you see the projects, you understand what the projects are, and it's a lot easier to comprehend what we're doing and whatnot if you can see what it is that we are providing.
Great. Thank you, Tammy. Mike, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, Brady, he's chomping at the bit. I mean, he's been here for like a month already. So he stopped down to the office and that kind of thing. We've been talking a little bit. But yeah, so I mean, I'll definitely want to take a look at your, formal orientation guide, make sure everything's incorporated. But really, I mean, there's a kind of an orientation we give because we have peer mentors that are volunteers and things like that. And certainly it's an overview of what VNN does, Veterans Navigation Network, and kind of the community that we touch. And then like we've done with new employee that we hired, went and visited those our most common partners, I guess, if you will, and introduce, hey, this is, going to be Brady, new face. So if he does call them, they're not like, they just have an idea on who he is, kind of a thing. But then, certainly we'll go over the different resources, most common, that he'll be, kind of interacting with or hearing about and that type of thing. And then, as far as the actual, certainly, history on the organization, that kind of thing, although I think he's pretty well versed already. And then, the project and that kind of thing, especially since, I updated our VAD on, kind of what we're doing. And we've got some big projects coming up that I think he'll definitely, it'll benefit him, but benefit, us as well. So just kind of giving him a big overview on what he's going to be working on, and what he's going to be working on first and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're looking forward to him starting, and I know he's definitely looking forward to getting to work, basically.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you. Okay, well, if you're looking for more VISTA resources, I like to put this on the slide as well. They have like kind of resource hub for intermediaries such as MTCC, site supervisors such as yourself, as well as members. And so if you want to look at any of this stuff, it includes the supervisor manual, which is more for me, but there is some applicable information in there. Same with the member handbook. This is, an entire handbook to kind of go over all the policies and expectations of VISTA. There's also some good free webinars on there, such as like grant writing, community assessment, stakeholder engagement, as well as learning about their education award, the non-competitive eligibility that they receive. There's a lot of webinars on there, and it's a free resource to them. And there is also more information on site orientation and training, as well as the supervisor Q&A. So there's a lot on VISTA Campus, and it's a great resource for anyone that's involved with a VISTA project. And your members also have access to all of this as well on VISTA Campus. They actually are required to create an account with VISTA Campus as part of their AmeriCorps onboarding. So that is available to them as well. Again, I just want to plug the, acknowledging your VISTA member throughout the year, highlighting and acknowledging their national service, as well as Montana Campus Compact as an intermediary. So we love to have either site supervisors or members share great stories and photos of their service. We encourage you to take photos, share things on social media, include the VISTA project in any sort of newsletters, press releases, or blogs that you may be sending out. Also, we encourage members that if they are, writing anything for social media or newsletters or whatnot, that they share it with us, because we love to broadcast things on our own social media. And then also our funders within the VISTA regional office, they're always looking for feel-good stories to see the impacts that VISTAs are making. And we often do send things up the chain to them. So encourage your member to take photos, share their stories, and then I will also encourage you as well to do the same. I have a bit about COVID best practices. VISTA has not really changed many of their policies, but they do have a coronavirus like Q&A, which is really great within their on their website. But the main thing I want to highlight is that they say that the health and safety of our AmeriCorps VISTA members is their top priority. What health and safety looks like for members varies by individual circumstances, which is why members are in the best position to determine for themselves if they can serve. As a general principle, members who elect not to report to their service site should teleserve. We are encouraging members to be physically at their site. If they do contract COVID during their term of service, there is protections for them within the VISTA policy. But if they are, non-symptomatic or whatnot, and they feel like they can serve, they are allowed to teleserve. So just remotely from their home. And so there is a Q&A. Also, if your VISTA is teleserving in any capacity, they do need to submit a teleservice request form. It is required for us to have that in our records. If they need to do teleservice, they should email me for that form. And if they are doing any sort of teleservice because of COVID, they must confirm that we must confirm that the VISTA has appropriate equipment. So access to a computer, the internet, phone, and a safe environment. So if your member does not have a laptop and you can't provide it to them, please contact us. We can work with UMIT to potentially secure a laptop for them to use while they are teleserving. Okay, and then again, if your VISTA is reporting to your site, because they are the ones who know how to keep themselves the most safe, we must, or you must, provide VISTA members with the appropriate equipment. So if they're coming to your site, you need to have a computer, internet, phone, a safe environment, as well as access to proper PPE. If your member prefers to wear a mask within at your site, you should have a mask and hand sanitizer available to them. Also, just a good best practice with COVID is communication. Prepare them for your COVID procedures and scheduling. Be flexible with them because each member, they may have pre-existing conditions that they have not disclosed to you that they need to keep themselves safe. So be flexible and make sure that you're communicating that you have a procedure in place that if they do contract COVID, that, you're both in the know of what to expect and what the procedure is. Okay, first several weeks timeline. Your member is going to start on July 5th. We are requiring them to participate in a virtual orientation with our office. So myself and Eli, we will have an entire day's worth of orientation. So if you want to have your VISTA on site to do that orientation with us virtually, let them know that they need to report to your site on July 5th, but just know that they are required to attend a one-day orientation with us on July 5th. From July 5th through the 26th, that's when that on-site orientation takes place. That is that 3 weeks. I will send the on-site orientation and training to you, and then I will also provide it to your member when they start service. Then on August 15th through the 17th, we are requiring all members, no matter when they start service this summer, to attend a 3-day in-person pre-service orientation here in Missoula. They will not need to worry about paying for transportation, lodging, or food. They just need to physically be here with us, and we will cover all of the logistics and the cost of this training. But they do need to be here in person with us. So we ask that you do not schedule anything during these 3 days, because it is vital that they are here with us. You know, we're going to do a deep dive more so into VISTA service, as well as the poverty landscape of Montana. This also gives them a chance to meet the entire cohort. At this point, we have 16 members that are coming on this summer, and we are really trying to foster that camaraderie and relationship building and network among these members. And then I will be doing check-in calls with site supervisors. So you through the month of July and August, really just, this is going to be a 15 to 30 minute conversation where we're just going to check in about how things are going. If there's any support that you need, any support that your member may need, or any clarifications on, you know, VISTA service. Really, it's just a check-in to make sure that you feel supported and that your member feels supported as they, you know, get further into their service term. So please, if there's one thing that I need you to remember, or if there's two things, that your member starts service on July 5th, and there's a virtual member orientation going on during that time, and then those 3 days in August. Those are the things that I need you to remember in terms of timeline. So August 15th through the 17th. And that is a Monday through Wednesday. And again, you can reassure your member, we already have that we're going to cover the logistics of all of this training. We're going to provide pretty much every meal from the time they get here to the time they leave. We're also going to cover hotel cost and any sort of fees that come with this training. They just need to physically be here in Missoula. Okay, so that is the end of my presentation. Again, I put my email and my phone number here. I like to just remind folks that my job is here to support you and to support your members and to be a good grant steward. So I am here. I'm your main form of support and communication between you and AmeriCorps. So if you need anything, never hesitate to reach out to me. My phone number is there. I will say that email is probably the best way to get a hold of me, because I check email way more than I check my voicemails, if I'm being completely transparent with you. So email is always good. Does anyone have any questions at this point? I know that I'm past time, so I want to be respectful of that.
I do
Well,
not.
it seems, I mean, pretty clear cut. If you've ever supervised anyone before, it's
Yep.
really nothing you shouldn't have been doing.
Exactly. Yep. Okay, well, then I will let the two of you go. But in the meantime, from today until your member comes on to serve, you know, in just a couple weeks, don't hesitate, you know, reach out if you have any questions, need some clarifications. And you can look for an email from me either tomorrow or the next day with the recording of this, as well as the slides and any attachments that I think are important for you to have.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you very
I
much.
do have one question. Are you going to be sending out the MOU?
Yes, sorry. Thank you for that reminder. Yes, I will sign the MOU and I will have it sent to you before July 5th. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep, of course. Okay. Well, with that, then I'll let the two of you go, and I appreciate you being here with me today.
Absolutely. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.